Turn your love of babies and bellies into cash. If you love babies and bellies and want to provide care and support to families, then Bibo Mia's webinar is the right place for you. Get answers to those burning questions like how to be the voice you wish you had at your birth and how babies and families can be supported by doulas. Learn all about the different kinds of doulas. You can work in fertility, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, or just enjoy working with those squishy babies. Supporting families by becoming a birth worker, aka doula, is perhaps an option that hasn't even crossed your mind, and that's why we want you to join this webinar. You can have great earning potential while doing something you love. Bibo Mia is the one-stop shop for education, community, and mentorship. Reserve your spot today at bibomia.com/free webinar. Welcome. This is Megan Heaton with the VBAC link, and we have a co-host today. I'm so excited to start welcoming in some co-hosts, and these are actually our VBAC doulas and birth workers. So welcome, Tara. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's awesome to be here.
It's super fun. It's kind of been something I've wanted to do for a long time and thought it would be fun. It just kind of adds, some different, vibes, I guess, to the podcast. Yeah. And you guys are all over the world too. And so it's kind of fun to hear your stories and your tidbits and what you see. So at the end, we're going to let her share some information as well. So without further ado, we always have a review. And just a reminder, if you guys have not left a review, we always love them and welcome them. You can leave them on Apple Podcasts. You can shoot us an email. You can go to Facebook and write one there. You can even Google the VBAC link and leave us a review there. So wherever it may be, wherever you're comfortable, drop us a review. It may be read next on the podcast. Okay, Tara, if you wouldn't mind reading someone's amazing review.
Yeah, I got it. So this is from Paige, who reviewed the VBAC course.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so not the podcast, but she's talking about the course, and she says, this course is as comprehensive and user-friendly as it gets. The workbook is so beautiful, and the information is so easy to find. I used the data pages more than once when interviewing providers and discussing hospital policies in preparing for my VBAC after 2 cesareans. I felt so empowered and confident in setting myself up for a positive birth experience with these tools in hand. So that's from Paige.
Love it. Thank you, Paige. Seriously, we have done kind of a lot on this VBAC course, and it's going to be continuing to update because, as we know, birth updates all the time, right? It's always updating. It's always changing. But our VBAC students, I don't know if anybody who is out there taking our course, I want you to know that as information comes in and as the course updates, you're always getting access to these updates. So excited, Paige. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you're interested in learning more and upping your VBAC game, we have courses for both parents and birth workers who are wanting to find more information about VBAC and how to support VBAC. And, Tara, she's one of them. She's one of our VBAC doulas, and we love to spotlight them, and we're going to have them on the podcast. And so we love our birth workers. We talk about, VBAC is something it's all over the world, and we can't, I personally, as Megan Heaton, cannot change the VBAC world alone. It's physically impossible, right? So between all of us birth workers out there and all of us parents out there learning about our options and advocating for ourselves and advocating for clients, it's going to help change the VBAC world immensely. So definitely check out the course if you're interested at thevbaclink.com.
You are tuned into the VBAC Link podcast with Megan Heaton, who is a longtime doula and VBAC mom herself, here to help you get inspired for birth after having had a C-section. Along with this podcast, the VBAC Link offers blogs, resources, and a comprehensive VBAC course for both parents preparing for birth and doulas wanting to take their VBAC education to the next level. Be sure to follow Megan and her team on all social media platforms for even more. Although these podcast episodes are VBAC specific, it is encouraged for all expectant moms to listen and educate themselves on how to avoid a C-section from the get-go. The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is not meant to replace advice from any other qualified medical professional. Here is your host, Megan.
Okay, Miss Jackie, you are holding a brand new baby. Tara and I got to see this little squish when we started. Oh, I love it. It's perfect. You are fresh out of your VBAC after 2 C-sections. And so excited. We talked about it a little bit before we started. We know so many people are wanting more stories about VBAC after multiple cesareans, and specifically too. So Jackie, we would love to turn the time over to you to share this beautiful baby's story.
All right. So I guess where you always want to start is why you had your first C-section. So
Yeah.
my first baby, we lived in a rural area, like Walmart in Canada was closer than Walmart in the States for us. Very rural. The closest hospital was about an hour 15 away from us. There was 3 hospitals I could choose from. One was an hour 15, one was about an hour 30, and the other one was, I think, another hour 20 or something like that. So I did my research on all the hospitals, found the hospital with the lowest C-section rate because I was not going to have a C-section, did all my research, found myself awesome midwives who were going to work with me. And then I went in for a scan around 34 weeks to find out that my daughter was breech. And nobody in the rural community that we live in any of those hospitals would deliver a breech baby. So I could travel like 3 hours and deliver a breech baby vaginally, but I opted for the C-section. I figured it was the safest bet for me where we were at. Cried a lot about that. My midwife was amazing. She comforted me because all I heard was my friends who had C-sections recently and how terrible their C-sections were. One of them got knocked out, general anesthesia, and couldn't see her baby for like 6 hours. Another one told me that at the hospital she went to, she didn't get knocked out, but they told her she couldn't go see her baby in recovery until she could move her legs after her C-section.
Whoa.
So I was bawling my eyes out because I was like, I'm not going to be able to see my baby at all. And I'm telling the midwife this. She goes, no, that will not happen to you at this hospital at all. Like those other 2 hospitals, I don't know what they're doing, but we will not allow that. Your baby will be checked over like 4 seconds right next to your head by the pediatrician, and then she'll be with you. And I will be in the operating room with you, even though I don't need to be there. So loved this midwife, amazing woman, absolutely loved her. Tried giving this 3rd baby her name as a middle name. And my husband was kind of against that.
Oh, that is so sweet of you. She must have impacted you a lot then.
She was amazing. I remember coming into the OR, they're getting all prepped. I'm laying at the table. She comes, she pulls down her mask. She goes, I know you can't tell who I am underneath the mask right now, but I'm here with you. I'll stay right with you the whole time. So I absolutely loved her, and she was amazing.
Thing anyone can do is just be present like that. How many weeks were you, Jackie, when you had your C-section?
I had a scheduled C-section at 39 weeks. They wanted to make it a little bit later than that, but I wanted my child to be born on the 22nd. So I chose the 22nd instead of I had to have a C-section. I wanted my baby born the 22nd. My birthday is the 22nd. My husband and I got married on the 22nd, and then his birthday is 2/11, which multiplies to 22.
Yeah.
So
that was special.
I was going to have the baby on the 22nd. And they were like, all right, well, we'd like it closer to 40 weeks. I go, it's 39 weeks. It'll be fine. So we had her.
Silver linings of choosing the date is at least you can have a little bit of control over that, right?
Yes. Having a planned C-section that I guess made it easy. We were able to drive down the night before the C-section, because again, we were driving an hour and a half for this, and they wanted us there at like 6 a.m. So we drove down the night before, went so smooth, everything that I wanted. I researched everything I could for a gentle cesarean. They had, a gentle cesarean, and they had the leads for the monitors on my back. They put the IV where I wanted it. They helped me take off my gown and put the baby right onto my chest as soon as the pediatrician was done in like 2 minutes with her. It was like a perfectly done C-section. Everything I wanted went well. Baby didn't leave my chest until my husband, I think probably a couple hours after I had her, goes, do you think I could hold her now? I was like, I guess so. So they were great. They postponed any weights. They postponed wiping her down. She still had blood all over her. It was like, again, the perfect C-section if you had to have a C-section.
Hey guys, so I have a confession to make. I am obsessed with the sauna. It is my favorite way to end a workout, and now I get to do it from home. Higher Dose's best-selling portable infrared sauna blanket makes it easy to get my sauna fix from anywhere. Especially during these colder months, it's been so nice to just lay down, get inside the blanket, turn up the heat, and sweat it out. Infrared therapy instantly boosts blood flow, flooding your body with the benefits like radiant, youthful skin, higher energy, boosted mood, and decreased bloat. And for those of you who want to experience the benefits of infrared without the sweat, they also have a really cool line of infrared PEMF mats that recharge your cells to help you feel relaxed, grounded, and rejuvenated. They come in 2 sizes. It is game-changing. I have loved my sauna blanket, and I know you will too. Higher Dose offers payment plans starting as low as $50 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get your own today at higherdose.com. You can use promo code VBAC. That is going to get you 15% off. It's going to be at higherdose, HIGHERDOSE.com/VBAC.
With my second, it was the time of COVID. She was born in May of 2020, so beautiful COVID baby. Her due date was the day after my first daughter's due date, so exactly 2 years apart. Planned it out perfectly with the date, so I had my 2 years. The midwives told me I had to be able to have my VBAC. Because of COVID, they started doing only phone appointments. And if I went in, I always made sure to schedule with my favorite midwife because I absolutely loved her. She'd be measuring me. She'd be like, hey, you're measuring a week ahead. You're measuring a week and a half ahead. No big deal. She didn't have any concerns with it. At my 39-week appointment, I had it with the head midwife of the department. And she got very concerned that I was going to be having a VBAC and my fundal height was measuring larger, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ahead at that point. And she sent me for a growth scan and said I had to have it like immediately. So I scheduled it. I think it was like 3 days after that appointment. Scheduled it with the ultrasound people. I think I was 40 weeks exactly that day. And I went in to the scan and I said, don't tell me it's breech, because I'd already been fearful that this was going to be a breech baby again. And he said, nope, you're not breech, but you are measuring about 10 pounds for this baby. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I was freaking out because I knew they probably would say I couldn't have my VBAC because I was having a big baby. And as a tiny rural hospital without anesthesia on staff, like they can't handle that sort of thing. So he tried comforting me and telling me that, don't worry, these scans can be 2 pounds over, under. You're probably only having an 8-pound baby. Don't worry about it. I was like, okay. When my midwife got the results, the next day I was 40+1. And she said, nope, your baby's measuring 10 pounds. We can't have you do that here. If you want, you can come in for a C-section today. I said, well, I don't want to have a C-section. And I'd already had talked to the larger hospital that I would have to go to. If I were to go, they were going to allow me at the rural hospital to go 10 days past my due date. And if I was going to be pregnant for more than 10 days past my due date, I had to go to this larger hospital.
Oh, man.
So I'd already had my phone interview, I guess, with the MFMs at the larger hospital. We discussed if I needed to have an induction because I was past dates by more than 10 days. And they were all on board with that. They understood that it was going to be a VBAC. They were fine with everything. Actually, the night before, I had started having contractions, and I told the person in the interview that I said, well, last night I had contractions. This morning, they've kind of gone away. But hopefully I have this baby and I don't need to come see you guys.
Yeah, Jackie, can I ask you, yep. What was the birth weight of your first baby?
7 pounds, 2 ounces.
Okay, so that would be a big difference.
I did have gestational diabetes with the first one.
And, wow, that's still a small baby. Like,
yes, but I monitored my sugars religiously with her because if I did not have good sugar numbers, I would risk out of the midwives and have to be with the OBs. So I made sure like every little thing that went inside of me, it was the right amount of sugar, the right amount of everything. So I maintained my gestational diabetes with her amazingly. The second one, I did not get classified with gestational diabetes. But again, it was COVID and I was baking every single day with my 2-year-old to keep her busy and eating every single new cookie we discovered and new bread and everything we were making because that's what you have to do when you're stuck in a quarantine, I guess.
Yeah, COVID brought on the baking for a lot of us.
Yeah, and with most likely gestational diabetes, probably wasn't the best idea. Even though I had tested negative for it, I should have maintained those sugars better, I guess. So I talked to, the midwife called back and told me it's a 10-pound baby. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to go to this other hospital or have a C-section with us. So they contacted the other hospital. The other hospital called me back and said, hey, you can come in for an induction tonight. When can you be here? And I said, well, we got to pack up and then we can drive down there. This hospital is about 3 hours away from us. And they said, oh, it's going to take you 3 hours. Yeah, we'll definitely have a bed open for you in 3 hours. Come on down now. So my husband and I drove down, and as I'm having contractions again all the way down there, and he's hitting every single railroad track there is, because that's what you do in a rural community. There's lots of railroad tracks. We get down there, and they were going to check me. But then there was somebody actually having a baby, so the OB that was there stepped out and went and delivered that baby. They came back in, and they checked me, and I think I was at like 5 centimeters or something like that. And I told them that I didn't sleep the night before because I was having little contractions and was too excited to sleep. And I asked for something just basically to let me get some rest. So they gave me something in an IV. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a lovely concoction of something. And I went into their birth pool tub thing and just floated around all night long with whatever they gave me. And my husband kept telling me I kept falling asleep and snoring in the pool while he was there. And he kept having to be like, all right, let's make sure she doesn't drown now.
Yeah, I'm glad he was with you.
But I got some rest, and that was nice. And in the morning, they had me come out because they needed to do rounds or whatever, and the new OB on was going to check me. They checked me, and I was at 8 centimeters, and was basically told, oh, also they've been giving me Pitocin at like, I think it was a 2 is what they told me the whole night to get contractions going, even though I already had contractions going. So I was at 8 in the morning, and they told me basically, this baby is going to be a 10-pound baby. We're going to need to use forceps to get this baby out. You should probably think about getting an epidural now. So I thought, well, I'm at an 8 already. They always say wait till you get to like 6 centimeters. 8 sounds good. I'll get the epidural, because the idea of giant forceps did not impress me very much. It sounded very painful. So I said, sure, we'll take the epidural. And I got some sleep from the epidural too, which was nice. But then they checked me a few hours later, and I think I was at a 9. A few hours later, still at a 9. At one point, the doctor must have been close to like 6 o'clock. The doctor came in and said, hey, you're still at a 9. We're going to do a C-section. And my husband, not very good physically with labor and birth and all that stuff, but he's amazing at advocating for me, and he knew what I wanted. He knew I wanted this VBAC. He talked to the doctor and pulled him aside and said, nope, she wants this VBAC. You obviously want to go home. You go home. We'll wait like 3 or 4 hours, and we'll reassess the new doctor coming in. He's listened to the VBAC link with me. He's listened to other podcasts with me, and he knows that.
I love that. That's amazing.
It's good.
It is amazing.
But he was like, we'll see who else comes in, and we'll reassess then. She really wants this, so you can leave. He's like, nothing's wrong with the baby. Nothing's wrong with her. They're like, no, nothing's wrong. And so that doctor went home for the night. New doctor came in 3 hours later that we gave him for a timeline and said, hey, you're still at a 9. We're going to do a C-section now. And my husband turned to me and said, we took the time and you're still there. In the meantime, between that 3 hours, I was looking up all the different things that I could do with an epidural.
Was there anybody or was there anybody offering any suggestions or saying, okay, this is why we think you're at a 9, or like, okay, the front of your cervix is thicker than the back of your cervix? Like, was there any of that communication, or was it just like, oh, you're still there?
I'm blaming COVID still, because nobody was coming into the room at all. Like, nobody would come into the room because, I mean, it's the beginning of COVID. Nobody knows what COVID's going on, all this stuff. So I had no nurses coming in. A nurse would come in every once in a while to make sure the monitor was on my stomach correctly because it lost whatever. But other than that, nope, nobody was coming in. So it was basically me on Google figuring out, what can I do? I asked for a peanut ball. I had the peanut ball. I was going back and forth peanut ball. I moved the bed around. At one point, I called her and I said, I can feel my legs. Can I just get up and walk? And she was like, no, you can't. You have an epidural.
Yeah. Jackie, do you know how high the baby was when you were at 9 for a while?
0.
Oh, so it's pretty well engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I blame everything on COVID. That's what I'm going to keep telling myself. Not bad. It was the hospital or anything. I'm just going to say it was COVID. I told the MFM I had this time about that. He goes, yeah, I think they just didn't wait. I blame COVID too. And I was like, thanks, dude.
Yeah. You're like, thanks for validating me.
Yes. Thank you for that one. So I ended up having a C-section with that one, which an unplanned C-section was not the best. The epidural I had was causing problems. At one point, it pulled out while I was in labor still and didn't realize it. I thought I was just being a wimp and being like, oh, I could feel this through my epidural. And they're like, oh, no, you pulled it out. When I went into the OR, I told the guy, I was like, I can feel my legs. I can feel everything. I could stand up right now if you want. And he was like, no, you're fine. I'll just put some more into this epidural. You'll be fine. I was like, I can feel everything. And I was arguing with him that my epidural wasn't working. And he told me, fine, I'll put you under general anesthesia then. And I said, no. Yeah. I was like, no, you will not. I'm fine. My baby's fine. I don't want to do this. Get me out of this OR. Get me my husband. Get me out of here. I'm not having a C-section if this is the way it's going to be. And I started yelling at him. And he told me I needed to calm down, that it was not a big deal. And just was the absolute opposite of my anesthesiologist that I had in my first birth, who was like everything she could do to make me feel great. This one was just arguing with me. So he told me if I keep up whatever I was doing and don't calm down, that he was just going to put me under general anesthesia. So I just yelled at him. I said, fine, cut me open now then. I really don't care. You're not putting me under. Just cut me open. I don't care if I can feel it. So they tested it out, and I couldn't feel it as much as I thought I was going to be able to feel it, but you could still feel it much more than I did in my spinal for my first one. So they do the C-section. My husband's there, and I get a pain like between my shoulder blades from the epidural, and I can't lay down. And he's telling me that he's going to have to strap me down because I'm going to grab at my belly and I have to be strapped down for this. I'm like, my first C-section, I was not strapped down. They didn't even argue with me that it was fine. He goes, no, C-sections you have to be strapped down for. So then when I started complaining about my back hurting and I couldn't lay down, he unstrapped my arm so that way he could turn me to my side and make it so my back wouldn't hurt. They took the baby out. And instead of the baby coming straight to me, they took the baby and wiped her all down. They measured her. They did all of that stuff. Had my husband go over onto that side, which he's really squeamish, so he was not happy about being on the other side of the carton.
I'm waiting for the drum roll of the birth weight.
Oh, she was 9 pounds, 15 ounces.
Oh, so they were pretty close.
Yeah, they were an ounce off. She was a giant baby. She's 99th percentile, head, height, weight, everything. And she's maintained that 99th percentile in the 2 years of her life. I think she got down to 95th percentile at her 2-year appointment for weight. But yeah, she's just a big kid.
Hey, though, I mean, we had Katrina, one of our doulas, talk about VBAC client. It was like 11 pounds something. So
Wow.
9 pounds is pretty small. It's not all about the size. Yeah.
Yeah. 9 pounds, 15 ounces. And I still think that I would have been able to have the baby just fine. I remember
you got most of the way there. I mean, you're kind of one of those people that did both.
Yeah. It's like, you did both. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's hard.
So at my 6-week appointment with my midwives, I came in and talked to them. And I said, so when can I have a VBAC after 2 cesareans? 6 weeks later, I'm already asking that. I asked the OB while I was at the large hospital if they did VBAC after 2 cesareans. And they said, yep, you can come down for that if you have another kid. And when I was back at my little rural hospital, the OB there was a new OB, and she said, oh yeah, I don't see why you couldn't have one. That'd be fine. Just don't have a big baby this time. And then my midwife looked it up, and she found online that they don't have a policy against VBAC after 2 cesareans either. So she said, oh yeah, you can definitely do this.
Yeah.
So then
that's a lot of pressure though too. Like, don't have a big baby this time.
Yeah, just don't have a big baby this time.
Yeah. Kind of hard to like totally control. I mean, you can obviously do your best, but.
So when we got pregnant with our third, I went in and met with them, and we discussed VBAC after 2 cesareans, how it was. They told me 2 years ago that it was still in the plan. And my midwife says, well, let me talk to the head OB person. It's a small hospital, so there's 3 midwives, and I believe there's 2 or 3 OBs. And she talks to the OB, and the OB said, no, you had a 10-pound baby last time. We will not allow you to have a VBAC after 2 cesareans. And I said, okay, well, when do I transfer over to the big hospital then? It's a longer drive. I don't really want to make that drive for my appointments. Can I do my appointments with you guys, and then I'll transfer over later? And they said, that's fine. Stay with us as long as you need to, and we'll figure this out. I said, okay. In the meantime, they check to see if I have gestational diabetes, because after having gestational diabetes and then having a large baby, they assume I'm going to have it again. I failed the 1 hour and then passed the 3 hour. I passed the 1 hour at 18 weeks with this one. And then I did it again at 28 weeks and I failed the 1 hour, and then I had to do it again for the 3 hour. According to the numbers in Vermont, I would have failed by like 1 point and been diagnosed with gestational diabetes. I might add, at the time, we also moved states. So at 28 weeks, we moved from New Hampshire to New York, again, a nice rural community in the middle of nowhere. So at 28 weeks, I had them do the test, but I also had them prescribe the stuff for gestational diabetes. So that way I could monitor my sugars and make sure that I don't have a giant baby. While we were in New Hampshire, I started researching and asking on the VBAC Link community Facebook group, asking on mom groups in the area where we are in New York, where I could have a VBAC after 2 cesareans. And I did all my research of the different cities that were close to us. I say close because both of them were about 2 hours away from us, to find out where I could have this. Somebody recommended I have a home birth, and I was like, sure, I would love that idea because I wouldn't have to go anywhere. That sounds like a great idea. But in New York State, if you're having a VBAC after 2 cesareans, you have to have it in a hospital. You can't have it in a birth center. You can't have it at home. So that was kind of a bummer because I had found a midwife local to us who does them in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania will allow it, but New York doesn't. So I found a hospital with midwives in Rochester, New York, and I talked to them they had a Facebook Live, Meet Your Midwife, one day, and I talked to them and I asked them some questions. I said, could I have a VBAC after 2 cesareans? And they said, well, why do you need to specify that it's after 2 cesareans? And I said, well, a lot of places won't allow you to do it after 2 cesareans. And they were like, no, it's just a VBAC. They didn't seem to have a problem with that. I said, well, what if I have a large baby? Because my last one was 10 pounds. Can I still have my VBAC? And they're like, 10 pounds really isn't that big. And I was like, okay. I'm liking these answers. I'm liking these answers so far.
You're like, I'm not going to disagree with you.
Yep. And then I asked, what if I have gestational diabetes? Because I know some places when you have gestational diabetes, you risk out of being able to have the midwives and you end up with the OB. So they said, why would you have to not have midwives if you have gestational diabetes? Like everything that I was told before, they were just kind of like, it doesn't make any sense.
They're like pushing back on you. They're like, hey, listen.
Yeah, they're like,
we are VBAC
problem.
So after that, like, I think it was like a Facebook Live event or something. After that, I was like, oh, right, I think I found where I want to go. And then we went to see my mother-in-law, and we get a text from a friend saying, hey, you guys were at our party this past weekend, and somebody at the party just tested positive for COVID. So we took our tests right there at a mother-in-law's house, and we tested positive for COVID. Oh, no. So my first appointment got to be a virtual appointment because of COVID. We all tested positive.
Bummer.
So it was a bummer, and having to quarantine and do all that fun stuff. So a couple weeks later, after I'm out of the COVID quarantine, I get to actually go up and meet my midwives. A large midwife place with like a waiting room that actually people are in. It was a lot different than my tiny little hospital in the middle of nowhere in Vermont. So I meet with the midwives there. I explain to them that according to the numbers that my midwives pulled for my gestational diabetes screen, that I have gestational diabetes. I read them the numbers I had from my chart, and they looked at me and said, no, that's not gestational diabetes. Our cutoff is 185, not 180 here in New York. So now I don't have gestational diabetes anymore. And I told them that I would like to keep my monitor, though, and just continue monitoring because I don't want to have a giant baby again. And they were okay with that, and they just took it off my chart. So I drove 2 hours every 2 weeks and every 1 week, all those appointments, all the way up to Rochester to meet with these midwives. And anytime I went in with a concern, they basically told me, nope, that's fine. You can have your VBAC. I also hired a doula in the area too, because it was recommended from my favorite midwife back in Vermont that if I'm going to be somewhere new with people I don't know, I should have a doula who could help support me. And I agreed with that. So we got ourselves a doula. So now we're talking about the lovely birth story. So my doula kept contacting me and I kept telling her, no, I'm going to go late. I'm not going to go to 40 weeks. It'll be more than 40 weeks. Like I'll have this baby inside me forever. This pregnancy is so easy compared to my other two. Like I'm not in pain. Like I could be pregnant for 42 weeks and not even care, but I definitely can't have my baby this week. And she's like, why? I said, well, my husband's a teacher. His first day of school, it was Labor Day weekend. So his first day of school was the day after Labor Day. And I go, and my oldest is starting preschool in a new preschool. I don't want to ruin this week for them. It's their first week back to school. And I can't have my baby this week. So maybe next weekend I'll have the baby. It'll work out then. And my doula was like, okay, whatever you say, like this baby can come whenever they want, but sure, you can go late, whatever. So my kid and my husband have their first day of school. Everything goes great. That night, I put my kids to bed and I started having little contractions like I did with my second. And I was like, well, it's probably just going to keep me awake all night. And I've heard many a birth story on here that said, take some Benadryl, take some Tylenol, and just try and sleep through it. So that's what I did. I took some Benadryl, I took some Tylenol, and I slept through it. I'd wake up every once in a while around midnight. I was like, maybe I should start timing these to figure out what's going on. And they were coming like 5-10 minutes apart, something like that. They weren't consistent. And I could sleep through a lot of it. So I just said, all right, I'll take some more Benadryl and Tylenol, and I'll just keep sleeping. My 2-year-old crawled into bed with me and having contractions and trying to sleep with contractions. And my 2-year-old was not very fun. So I snuck out of the room and went down and slept on the couch. And it was time of the contractions there. My 2-year-old started crying, looking for me, asking where I was. So I went back upstairs and I snuggled her in her bed. And the contractions were still happening. I was like, this is strange. Last time, like basically when I woke up, they went away. But whatever. They weren't very painful and I could sleep through them. So I didn't think anything was happening. My husband gets up for his second day of school and he's in the shower. And I said, hey, don't get too excited to be at school. Don't get too excited about this. I go, I've been having contractions. They're probably going to fizzle out when the sun comes up. Don't worry about it. But maybe have some plans together for the afternoon because I'll probably call you and say, hey, we need to go to a hospital. And he said, oh, you think you're going to have the baby? I said, I don't know, but just have some plans just in case. Like leave that like that. So I get the 4-year-old all dressed, send my husband and her to school. And I bring my 2-year-old out to our makeshift living area in the barn. And I climb the stairs to the barn. I'm making us breakfast. And all of a sudden, my contractions went from, oh, this is nothing, I can sleep through it, to maybe I should not have sent them to school. This is not feeling right. I'm having contractions now a lot closer together. They're a lot more painful. And I'm trying to breathe through them. And my 2-year-old's copying me and making fun of me. So
Does your
I'm
doula
trying
know
to.
yet?
I sent her a text at this point. I said, hey, just letting you know. And she's like, all right, well, I go, it's probably nothing. Like, again, I don't think anything's going to happen. I was like in labor for 48 hours with the other one. Like, nothing's going to happen anytime soon. I didn't want to worry her. I did send a text to my mother-in-law too, because she lives about 45 minutes away. And I said, hey, if you get dressed and ready for the day, do you think you could come on over to the house instead of going to work today? Would that be okay? And she's like, yeah, that'll be fine. I'll be over after my shower. I said, okay. So they pick up a lot more. My doula texted me and she said, maybe you should hop in the shower until your husband gets back, because I haven't been able to get a hold of him. His school has been in the news because they said no cell phones at all for kids. So he's making sure his cell phone's not even like seen in the school building. So I can't get a hold of him, even though I told him to keep an eye out for me. So I'm trying to text him. My doula says, go hop in the shower. I was like, yeah, you're right. I probably should hop in the shower. This will all go away. So I said, bring my 2-year-old inside. On the way inside, we have our crew who's working on the house is all there. They volunteered the day before to take me to the hospital if I needed it. So I'm like trying to not show them that I'm in labor at all, like hiding my facial expressions. Like, this is no big deal. Like, construction crew, you're fine. You stay here. Bring my 2-year-old and sit up with the TV, and I hop in the shower. I try calling my husband's school, and I realize that I can't get through a contraction, or I can't get through the automated messaging system to find out how to get a hold of my husband at this new school before another contraction comes. So I text my mother-in-law and I said, you need to call him. I can't do this. And he's not answering. And she asks what the telephone number is. And I'm like, I don't know. Google it. Like I could not even like think through these contractions. All of a sudden they were just
serious.
Stop talking to me. That's
they were awful. Like did not have contractions like this with my first. And again, I did it like to 8 centimeter, like not my first, my second. And I was just like, I got to get in the shower. So I get in the shower and I'm sitting there and I sat there till the water ran out of hot water. And I was like, I plugged the tub before that because I was like, well, maybe sitting in a tub would be nice too. And so when the water ran out of hot water, I'm now laying in the tub and I'm just screaming on the top of my lungs. And I'm like, just think about the work crew who's like on the other side of this wall in our kitchen, working on making our kitchen. And I'm just screaming on the top of my lungs. My 2-year-old keeps walking in, asking for something. And I'm just yelling at her to get out. She's like, Mama, I hurt my nose. And I'm like, I don't care. Get out of here. Just screaming. It was just so painful. And all of a sudden my husband walks in and he goes, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm having a baby. Like, obviously you can hear me screaming. He's like, well, the entire crew was standing outside, like in a huddle, like, what should we do? Oh. And I'm yelling orders at him now. And I'm like, you need to get the bag. He's like, okay, I got the bag. I was like, you need to go get my dress. He comes down with, I don't even remember what dress he came down with. I was like, no, there's a black dress in the closet. Go get me my black dress. I'm not going to be able to put clothes on. Like, go get that. He goes up and gets me the dress. He comes in, he goes, my mom's here, so we don't have to take the girls with us. And I was like, thank God, because I was going to leave the girls for the work crew. I wasn't going to care right then. The work crew could watch our children. It was just, I was done. So slowly I get out. I tell him, yes, put the dress on me because there's no way I'm going to be able to dress myself. I tell him to grab my shoes because for my first 2 children, I went home barefoot because I did not have my shoes. So this one, I wanted to make sure I had my shoes. So I had him grab my shoes.
Good tip right there.
Yeah. No, I went home barefoot for a 3rd time too. So I'll explain that afterwards. So I get into his truck and I can't sit down. I said, get a towel underneath me just because my water breaks. Like, and I'm just screaming and obscenities are coming out of my mouth. And I feel terrible because my kids are looking at me like, what the heck is going on? They only know about cesareans because that's all I've had. Those are the pictures I've shown them. And so I'm standing up basically in the front seat of his truck, just standing there screaming and being like, drive. We live on dirt roads. So the entire time I'm cursing the dirt roads because it's all bumpy. They've graded it this week.
You have a 2-hour drive to the hospital. Is that right?
We have a 2-hour drive to the hospital, but I am certain I'm going to make it because my last labor was so long. Like there's no way that we're not going to make it. We're driving 2 hours. So we're driving and our little town is having its bridge work done. So we have 1 red light now. And of course we hit that 1 red light and I'm now cursing at the red light. And my husband's like, really? Like he's just like laughing beside himself because it's like, this is what's happening. Exactly. We have 1 red light and this is what we're doing. We're hitting the red light and she's screaming obscenities at me.
This is your moment to blow that red light, right?
Yeah. If you could see the other side of the bridge and didn't know people were coming, or knew people were coming, I probably would have told him to do so.
Yeah.
But I didn't even have a head-on collision at that point. In our mommy group that I am on Facebook for the due date group or whatever, the day before, I think it was, I was telling, there was some girl who was like, oh, I almost had a car birth. And I was like, well, I take a car birth over cesarean any day. And I'm thinking to myself, did I just wish this upon myself? Like, am I going to have this baby in this car? So we got 2 hours to drive. All the hospitals around us don't do VBACs. Like, not even VBACs after cesareans, they don't do VBACs at all. So any chance in my head that I'm going to get a VBAC is I have to drive 2 hours. I have to get to this hospital. So my husband's driving. We make it about 2 exits down the highway. And I'm telling him, you need to call the midwife group. And midwife group has 2 different locations. And he's calling the one on speakerphone that is the second location. I'm like, no, that's not the right one. You need to call this one. So he calls that one, tells them that we're on our way. And they ask, oh, how often are her contractions coming? And I just yell, too close together. We're coming. Like, you're not going to stop this. And I had him call my doula. He's talking to doula. And the doula says, is that her in the background? He goes, yeah, that's her. She goes, stop the car right now. Call 911. Get an ambulance. And I'm like, no, we don't need an ambulance. Just keep driving. Like, you're going to slow us down. Just get there. I'll add that he also was using Google to get there because he hasn't been to any of my appointments and he's never been to the city really at all.
Oh, gosh.
So he's following Google, and the way Google takes you is these back roads through Amish country, because we live like in an Amish country. And I'm like, no, get back on the highway. I don't care if it's 2 minutes longer. Like you're driving on the highway. Like I'm not going through Amish country and getting stopped by a buggy or getting stopped by a train. Stay on the highway. So we're 2 exits down, and he's like, okay, well, doula said call an ambulance. I'm calling an ambulance. I'm like, okay, call the ambulance. You're overreacting, but whatever. As I'm screaming. Behind us,
multitasking queen, Jackie.
Behind us, a trooper pulls up, and my husband tells me, "Oh, look, the ambulance driver." That's not the ambulance. That's a trooper. He's not going to be able to help us with anything. Trooper comes over and
Escort
says,
you.
He goes, "The ambulance will be here in a second." They're right behind me. So the ambulance pulls up, and I'm still standing in the front of the truck. No seatbelt, nothing. Like, can't even kneel down or sit down in this truck. I am just standing, screaming. And the guy from the ambulance comes in and says, okay, well, I need you to get onto the stretcher. And I said, I can't move. And I'm yelling at him. And he goes, childbirth isn't that bad.
Oh.
And I looked at him and I just screamed again, more obscenities. I have my 4-year-old and 2-year-old watching TV in front of me, so I will not be screaming those obscenities. But I was like, you're a man. Like, you have no say in this. You have no idea what this is like. Like, you cannot tell me it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I've delivered many babies, and I've delivered 5 of my own from my wife. And I'm just like, yeah, you did not have a baby. And like, I'm yelling at him. And he's like, well, I need you to get on the stretcher. So somehow I managed to get on the stretcher, but I'm on the stretcher on my hands and knees again, holding on to the top of it. He tells me, no, you have to roll over. You have to lay on your back. And I told him, there's no way I'm going to roll over. There's no way I'm going to lay on my back. I'm good like this. He goes, after arguing me for a few minutes that it's not safe, that I can't go like that, he finally decides to put like the seatbelt or whatever the stretcher has around the back of my legs and wheels me into the ambulance. With him, he's got another guy with him, I believe. And then there's this young girl. And the young girl is obviously very new to being an EMT. At one point, I hear from thank her for coming because they needed a female to come, I guess. But she has no idea about anything with birth or anything.
Her eyes are wide.
Yeah. I'm yelling at her to squeeze my hips because I'm in so much pain. My husband was squeezing my hips in the truck for me for each contraction. After everything was said and done, my husband told me that if we have a 4th, which before he told me absolutely not, we were never having another kid after 3. If we have a 4th, he needs to go to the gym and work on whatever muscles he needs to be able to squeeze hips because he has no muscles there.
That's right. It's hard work, isn't it, Megan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I yelled at him, I go, this is why I needed a doula. She knows what to do.
Yeah. Well, and that's another pro of a doula too, is they can switch off.
Yes, that's what I was looking forward to. I was going to have this really long labor, and they were going to switch off when his arms got tired. Her arms would hop in, and it would be wonderful. But I'm in the ambulance, and I'm yelling at this poor young girl that she needs to squeeze my hips, and the guy's trying to tell her like, you got to squeeze her hips. That's what she wants. And then my body decides that it is going to start pushing on its own, but not push out a baby, but push out poop, which
comes first sometimes.
Yep. I read all the things, and all the things said, yeah, that happens, and people just wipe it up, and you'll never even know. And I'm yelling at the girl like, I apologize that this is happening. And she's like looking at the guy like, what do I do? And he's like, just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. I'm like every contraction now, I am now pooping and extremely embarrassed by this and screaming because I'm in so much pain. And the guy who has delivered so many babies and childbirth isn't that bad tells me I need to relax so he can put an IV in my hand.
Oh boy.
And I tell him if he wants me to relax, he needs to give me some drugs. He tells me he can't give me any drugs because I'm having a baby and there are no drugs that are safe for a baby.
Oh dear.
And he goes, well, if I get this IV in you at the hospital, they'll be able to give you some drugs. And I said, okay. So I managed to somehow stop squeezing my hand and let him have it. And he got the IV in. We pull up to the hospital, and they roll me into the hospital, and there's probably about, my husband said he counted 25 people in the room. One of the nurses I talked to later said he counted at least 30 people in the room. It's an ER room because this hospital does not have a maternity ward at all. So they don't deliver babies at all, which was a surprise to me, especially when I asked for drugs and they told me that they couldn't give me anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like the EMT guy promised me you'd be able to give me drugs.
So that's a good point, Jackie, because if you call an ambulance, they have to take you to the nearest hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So
the nearest hospital was
to the one that you had intended to give birth at.
Right. But I still thought that they'd take me to one that I could give birth at, because 30 minutes north of this hospital, there was a hospital that I ended up being transferred to after I gave birth that does have maternity ward. But no, they brought me to the closest one possible. And they had, again, no maternity ward, nobody who's delivered babies.
But the entire staff standing by.
Oh, yeah, the entire staff, I'm pretty sure, of this hospital standing in the room with me. My husband was like, I had nothing to do during your labor. He goes, I walked in. First of all, he followed Google again and did not end up at the right hospital. And then was like, oh, wait a second, I know what hospital this is. We've driven past it before. And he ends up at that hospital. He says he walked in and had my bag and my birth plan, hands my birth plan to the nurse. And the nurse goes, we don't have time for that, throws it. And he was like, okay. So I remembered the one thing I had to remember, and they don't even want it. He goes, I get in there and they put me behind you at my head because I'm still on my hands and knees on top of a stretcher right now. And he goes, there were so many people around, I had nothing to do. He goes, you had 2 people who were wiping your forehead for you. You had 3 people who were like holding your hand for you. You had somebody who was wiping your butt. He goes, every single person has something to do. And I just was standing there looking like an idiot. He goes, there's so many people in that room. I was like, yeah, it's a lot different than our second labor where we were the only 2 people in the room. So we're in there with all the people just staring at me. There was a sweet woman up by my head who kept telling me wonderful, nice things. And if I wasn't in labor, I'd probably hug her and tell her she was a wonderful person. But I was in so much pain, I just kept yelling at her to just shut her mouth and be quiet and all these terrible things that I feel so bad about now. At one point, she advises whoever's on the other side of me, I don't know, to maybe shut the blinds to the ER room because it's like all glass. So like you walk into the ER and what you would see was my behind as I'm trying to give birth on a stretcher with 25 people around me. So I was very thankful she said that they should probably shut all these blinds. People weren't watching. But they have someone come in and they tell me that this is a pediatrician. She's delivered babies before, so it's going to be okay. So that's my first hint that they don't have anybody to deliver babies at this hospital. There's a pediatrician here now and she's delivered babies. It's okay. So the pediatrician decides she needs to check me, and in the middle of contraction, shuts her hand up, and I'm just screaming, and I'm like, get your hand out of me. I started kicking her, which again, I feel terrible about. Now I apologize to her after the fact, but yeah, definitely kicked her a couple of times, telling her to get away from me. They kept telling me I had to be on my back to be checked. And I told them, no, you can have babies on your knees. Like, I'm not laying on my back. I can't do that. I can't roll over. I, again, involuntarily are pushing so much poop out of myself, which again, no one prepares you for that. Everyone tells you, oh no, don't worry about it. Like no one's even gonna notice. Everybody knew it was happening. My husband knew it was happening. There was poop in front of me on the stretcher. There was just poop everywhere. And I was just so embarrassed. I was like, nobody told you that this much could happen. At some point, they told me that I'm pushing out this baby. I think it was like 9:30 a.m. when my husband called the ambulance. And we were at the hospital by probably 9:50, maybe 10 o'clock. And we were there, and the pediatrician just told me, you just got to start pushing. Just keep pushing, keep pushing. And I'm like, there's no way I'm having this baby. Like, I went 48 hours the last one. Like, I was barely having contractions an hour ago. Like, there's no way this baby is coming out of me. And she's like, you got to push, you got to push, you got to push. So I start pushing. And then they finally convinced me to roll over, that I might be able to push better in that position. So I roll over that position. I think it was like 3 or 4 more pushes, and out popped a baby. At some point, I thought she, again, was trying to find out where my cervix was and had her hand up inside of me. And I'm yelling at her to stop that. And she's like, it's not me. Your baby is coming out. And again, I did not believe that there was a baby going to be born. Like, I could not believe it at all. And when she came out, I, again, was still shocked. Like, I just had a baby and they wanted a C-section. Like, this didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I'm just sitting there like complete shock, and like I couldn't believe it. And they're like, you have and because we have surprises for each of our kids. So they go, and what do you have? And I told them it was a surprise, and they're like, we have another girl. My husband's like, 3 girls, just what I always wanted. But I had my VBAC after 2 cesareans, and again, like you said, you're just on like this birth high, like I actually did this. I had a 2nd-degree tear, and the pediatrician person is trying to stitch me up again. I'm on a stretcher. I'm also again covered in poop because I was kneeling in it. So there's like 4 nurses wiping me down, giving me like a sponge bath, get all the poop off me. My husband and I are joking that the room smells terrible, and why would 25 people want to stand around and watch this? Because it smells so bad in that room. So that was a lot of fun. We still joke about that now, even though I tell him he can't talk about it with anybody else. They stitched me up. The pediatrician was complaining because they don't have any beds with stirrups, and they don't have any beds with like the broken down part like you give birth in. So I was on a ER stretcher, and she could barely get in there to do my stitches comfortably. While we're doing this, some other lady walks in and says, hey, just to let you know, we don't have a mother and baby wing, so you guys are going to be transferred. Do you mind going to this hospital that was like a half hour away? And I was like, sure, I already had the baby. I guess it doesn't matter which hospital I go to now. So they get another ambulance, and they put me in an ambulance, and they take me to this other hospital where I saw the OB that walked in. I think as I was pushing from that hospital, they called that OB down about a half hour away to come. So I guess I must have been pushing or there for at least a half hour, because the OB walked in, and he comes up, and he said, well, is your husband coming yet? My husband will be up. He was at the hospital. He's like, oh, he was the one. My husband's got a really big orange beard. He's like, oh, he's the one with the big beard. I was like, yeah. He goes, this guy's telling the nurse, this guy's got a great beard. He goes, I thought he was the way he's dressed too. He came from school, so he's in a shirt and a tie and khakis. He goes, I thought he was another OB that they called in, and he got there first, and he was just watching. And he goes, yeah. So when I got to the hospital, he goes, she's in active labor, about to have this baby. And he goes, one of the nurses turns to me. She goes, so are we going up to the OR now? Are we going to do the section now? And he's like, I turned to her and goes, she's pushing out the baby. Why do we need to go to OR or a C-section? Just let her have the baby. She knows what she's doing. And just made me laugh that, again, I had a VBAC after cesarean in a hospital that was absolutely not prepared to even deliver a baby.
Wow.
Delivering my placenta, they had to look for a hemorrhage kit because they couldn't find Pitocin to give me Pitocin. My husband was like, hold on, are they dusting off that box over there? Because they've never seen this before. Like, one of the nurses, we said, so how many people do you have that come in here have babies? She goes, I've been here for a year and nobody's had a baby here yet this year.
Oh, wow.
She goes, so that's probably why everybody was in here.
Yeah.
They wanted to see if somebody have a baby.
You gave them a story that they'll be telling for a long time.
Yeah.
It definitely crazy. Like, I never thought that could happen as fast as it did. Never thought I'd have a VBAC after cesareans for starters, and never thought I'd have one in a hospital that doesn't deliver babies.
Yeah, I just didn't even do babies.
So you sent your husband to work and had the baby before lunchtime.
Well, that's what I said when I had the baby. I was 10:42 when I had the baby. So again, I was texting him at 8 that maybe he should come home. I think we were in the car around 9. 10:42 is when the baby was born. And I said, hey, you have lunch duty soon. Do you want to go back for that? And he laughed. He goes, I think I'll take the rest of the day off.
I think I'll stay.
Sure, his adrenaline was sky high.
Oh my goodness.
He went back to school the following day, and his principal was like, you had a baby yesterday. Why are you here? He said, why shouldn't I be here? She's got nurses looking after her. She's fine. My mother's got the other 2 kids. We're good. I could be at school.
That's the parents of a third child right there.
Yes, very much parents of a third child.
I love it though. I love it all. It's so awesome. Such an adrenaline rush. I mean, one that like so many people are never going to forget. Like seriously. I mean, you You did
I
something.
feel like I need to send them something though, like a card saying, I'm sorry for all my obscenities. I'm sorry I was so rude to you.
No. You know, we don't take anything personal as like birth workers. And I mean, I know they weren't birth workers, but they can't take it personal, right?
That's right. Doulas always say everything's forgiven in labor. We know that things happen, drama happens, words get said.
Words get said. Yeah, things get done. I had a mom bite me one time, like my hand.
Oh.
Yeah. Like she just grabbed my hand like and just bit it. And then after she was like, did I just bite you? And I was like, yep, but that's what you needed to do. So you're good. You're good. Oh, I love it. Well, congratulations. I know you're still fresh off of this and I can just feel the energy and like, oh, it's so amazing. It's so amazing.
It's incredible. How are you feeling about your healing so far? It's been a short time. Right? How's it feeling?
I was a little shocked. I was a little shocked at the fact that there was more pain than I thought there was going to be, having a second degree tear and lots of lovely hemorrhoids. So sitting was not something fun.
Yeah.
So a little shocked by that, but compared to a C-section, it's so much better. Like I was thinking about our bedrooms are on the second floor. The barn rec room that we're in is on the second floor. Like where we hang out right now doesn't have a bathroom. So it'd be like, I have to go up and down stairs. How was I going to do that with having a C-section?
Yeah. Still try not to do it too much after this birth.
Yeah. Still take it easy. Still take it easy. And sometimes we just want to like get back into it, right? Like we just want to get back into it. And we have to remember that we still just did a very big thing. We pushed a baby out of us and we still have to recover and give our body time.
Yeah. And that's a big mistake that I definitely made it too. But when you feel so much better than you did the other time, you think, oh, I'm good to go. I can climb stairs. I can make my family dinner. I can do the things that I did before I had the baby. And it catches up with you and your healing takes a lot longer.
Yeah. Don't rush it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Give yourself some grace.
Yeah. Yes. Give ourselves some grace. And I always tell people like, when you're feeling really good, that means you need more time. Just keep giving yourself time. It's okay to take it. I love it. What an amazing story, though. One you will never forget. And thank you again so much for sharing it with us. Seriously.
Thank you. Exciting one. One of the things my husband said to me after I had the VBAC, he goes, hey, now you can be on that podcast you listen to all the time.
Oh, did you tell him you got the email?
I haven't yet, because I was like, well, what happens if something goes wrong and we don't actually get to record and it gets canceled or whatever? But I'll tell him when he gets home tonight. My 4-year-old actually woke up throwing up this morning, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this because she's going to be throwing up all day, but she's held it down for the whole hour. So
got a lot going on.
Yes, you do. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for taking all the time today to share this beautiful story, and congratulations once again.
Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Congratulations, Jackie. Enjoy those baby cuddles.
I know. Those little coos are so sweet.
Would you like to be a guest on the podcast? Tell us about your experience at thevbaclink.com/share. For more information on all things VBAC, including online and in-person VBAC classes, the VBAC blog, and Julie and Megan's bios, head over to thevbaclink.com. Congratulations on starting your journey of learning and discovery with the VBAC Link.